It's my pleasure to introduce our Reed and Christine Halliday Executive Lecture Series speaker today. Our speaker is Lance Black, and his middle name is Eli. Lance Eli Black was born and raised in Animony, Utah. And it wasn't until he went to BYU that he left that bustling metropolis. He still likes to go home whenever possible and has learned that you can't quite get the country out of the boy. Lance graduated from BYU in 1994 with a bachelor's in computer science and received his MBA from BYU in 2001. He and his wife Michelle, who is here today, are busy raising their 6 children. Lance loves playing with his family, going to the sand dunes, reading a good book, skiing on the slopes, watching the Jazz and the Wolverines. He recently took up golf and is strangely excited about his double bogey game. Lance's partner and CEO of Eli Kirk, a leading Utah creative agency. Eli Kirk's focus is marketing strategy, design, and web. Eli Kirk is a company of 45 hardworking left and right-brained people who help their clients create memorable brands that produce measurable results. Lance and his business partner, Jared Kirk-Love, established Eli Kirk in 2001. Let's give Lance a round of applause.
You hear that? Oh, there we go. I bet you've never had anybody come on stage with a cowboy hat. Raise your hand if you own a cowboy hat. Yeah. Okay, I'm in good company today. It's an honor to be with you. I'll set that right there. Brad, I've known Brad for quite a few years, and he called me the other day and asked if I'd come and do this, and so it's an honor. Mostly because even though I'm going to be 45 next month, as I look out, I think that I'm your age. If you look close at me, though, the wrinkles around the eyes would tell otherwise. My wife, however, she does look like she's your age. I'm going to talk about a few things that are important to me and maybe have a little fun while we're doing it. In the introduction that Brad mentioned, he said that I'm from Animony. I'm going to tell you a funny story about Animony. There it is on Google Maps. Raise your hand if you've ever been to Animony. Okay, there's about 4 of you. There it is from the valley. I believe that's taken east of town. To give you an idea about Animony, I was a teenager in the 80s, and I had a good friend that owned a Pontiac GTO, 1968, and he loved that car, and we'd go everywhere in it together. And one night, we decided we were going for a little cruise, and it was probably one of the only times that he was actually doing the speed limit. And it was a time of night that, right through town, of about 100 people, it was about the time of night that it's too dark to really see really well, but it's not dark enough that the headlights work, you know, that kind of time of night. Next thing I know, there's a horse in the middle of the road, and we hit it. Glass is on my lap, the post right here is down in my face, the roof metal is down on my head. I kind of come to from just the shock of it all, and there's a dead horse to the side of me, and my friend is in tears because his car has crashed, and we kind of recover from that a little bit, and within a couple minutes here comes a farmer down the road in his truck, and he sees this situation, and it's his horse. And he had been out leading it with a lead rope and just out the side of his truck, exercising it. And the horse yanked and was running home when we came down the road. Well, the thing I remember about that exchange was my friend, who was really mad that that his 1968 Pontiac GTO was demolished. And contrast that with this gentleman who I knew, and fine man, whose $10,000 prize stud was laying dead in the road. So that's the kind of interaction you get when you grow up in Animony, Utah. Not too many people, I don't think, have ever hit a horse, but that might give some context to me. Left there, went to BYU, was married, got married fairly young, and decided, you know what, I need to provide a living for my wife and future family, and so I want to do something that makes me lots of money. What makes me lots of money? And I went to a civil engineering course, and I thought, you know, I really don't want to build bridges. And so I went to I took a computer science class. And I went and saw a counselor, and they said, yeah, you can expect to make this much money. And that was my motivation. I need to make money. And but I loved computer science as well. And so I graduated from computer science. And this was in '94, I went to work for a local tech company. And within a couple months of what they hired me for, they realized that I was magical, that I could do something pretty amazing that nobody else knew how to do. And it was this thing called the internet and web and HTTP, and with protocols like Veronica and Archie and FTP and Telnet. And I knew this amazing language that they thought was really hard called HTML. So I became, quickly, a webmaster. That's a picture of me in 1995, probably, minus the cigarette. That looks a lot grainier up there. That's not me. So that was great. And then I realized, you know what? I'm not a programmer. And I told my wife that, and she said, well, that's what you went to school for. I thought, no, I'm not a programmer. I sit next to people who are programmers, and I'm not like them. They're smarter than I am. So I went back to school, and I went and got an MBA, which is, many of you probably have those aspirations, and you're in the business school. Well, that turned me on. I was on fire. I learned about things that I'd never heard about time value of money and finance and international strategy and marketing. And so it really was exciting to me. So at the end of that trip, or the end of that school semester, I went on a foreign business trip to China. And we saw a bunch of factories, and we were there for about 2 weeks, and it was amazing. But I'll tell you a quick story. We were in a building there that was just gorgeous, a beautiful building. As students, we were listening to this Chinese diplomat who was American educated, and he was talking about foreign relations and specifically U.S. and China relations at the time. At that time, we had just about 2 weeks previous shot down, or they had shot down one of our drone planes, and so tensions were a little high, and they weren't giving it back. Well, the thing I remember about that was this map of the world that was behind him on the wall. And it was as big as this room, big as this wall right here. And it was a map of the world, and China was dead center, and the United States was cut in half on both sides. I'd never seen anything like that. Every map I had ever seen, America was in the middle, and China's cut in half on each side. And so that's what you call a paradigm shift. And it was just an amazing experience to me of, wow, we're over there in America, we're not all we thought we are, right? Or that we think we are. So that was great. In that MBA class, would get guest speakers, much like you're having here. And I remember one time a man came, and his name was Mr. Maxfield, and he was one of the owners of the founding partner, if I remember right, he was an older gentleman, of Maxfield Candy Company, Maxfield Chocolate. And he said, how many of you want to be entrepreneurs? A few of us raised our hand. He said, let me tell you about an entrepreneur. He said, an entrepreneur is somebody who has payroll due tomorrow morning, and they don't have money in the bank to cover it, and they sleep like a baby that night, and they're not worried. And he said that's because they know the next morning that they can make a few phone calls to a few trusted friends and advisors and get it covered. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. At the time, I didn't think, or I thought, boy, I don't know that I've got the stomach for that. But in 12 years of business here, I can realize that there's a lot of truth to that. So that was kind of some of the experiences that we got. So right around that time when I graduated from school, I got laid off, and that was traumatic. And I remember thinking, I thought other people got laid off, not smart people like me. And then your mind starts playing tricks with you, and you think, well, maybe I'm really not that smart. Maybe I deserve to get laid off. But I remember I was talking to my dad, who is a wise man, and he said, son, when I heard you got laid off, I was happy. And I thought, what are you talking about? How could you be happy about that? And he said, the problem with people like you, and if you know my dad, you could see him saying that. The problem with people like you is you get one of those fancy city jobs, and the paychecks keep coming, and then you realize, hey, all I got to do is show up to work, and the paychecks keep coming, and then, you know, you do a good job, and the paychecks keep coming, and then pretty soon, one day, you're 55 years old, and you wake up, and you don't have a job. And then what are you going to do? He said, son, the time to beat the streets is in your 30s. Now get to work. And so that's some advice I would pass on to you. that proved very, very truthful to me as well. And so I was without a job, and I had some options ahead of me, one of which was to go find another job and work for somebody, which is great and honorable, and that's great. But I also had an opportunity in front of us, my partner and I, who was a friend at the time and still is, the same company that let us go still needed some work done. So guess what? We had our first client, and thus Eli Kirk was born. So quickly, I'll tell you a little bit about Eli Kirk. We don't manufacture three-legged stools, but we are like that in our three-pronged process. Sorry, one of the reasons we were up here, we were trying to get my clicker to work, but technology failed. We are a strategy and design and development company. We stand on those three legs. Quick story. I mentioned that I was doing web developer and I knew kind of my way around the web. So we started as a web development company. And one day I was talking to one of my peers who was a competitor of mine, and he said, you know, Lance, the problem with you and the difference between your company and my company is you do one and done. Somebody comes and pays you money to do a website, and then they're gone. And then you got to go find another client. He said, in my case, he said, we offer a lot more services. And so we can bill a client 5 or 6 or 10 times during the year for different services. Maybe it's a website, maybe it's a brochure, maybe it's a marketing strategy, maybe it's a magazine ad, maybe it's, you know, some sort of, wasn't so much then, but it would be more relevant today, maybe a social media strategy. So I said, you know, that really made an impression on me, and I said, he's right. He's right. It's exactly right. And so we quickly learned that we couldn't just be a web development shop and make it. So we started, you know, at that time we had been hiring freelance designers, and so we made our first hire as a designer. And now today we have about 8 designers in our firm and growing. But then we decided to offer this top offering, which is strategy. Now, marketing strategy, I'll talk a little bit about it and apply it to how it might mean something to you in a minute. But that allows us to do just as my friend told me. It allows us to kind of have a higher umbrella offering that things kind of trickle, other jobs, if you will, kind of trickle down from that. And so we offered that starting about 4 years ago. We acquired a company out of Salt Lake called M2 Results that was a marketing strategy firm. And now the majority of our engagements are these umbrella engagements, which allow us to really offer a better full service to our clients. Here's some brands that we work with. You know, not only do we do a lot of marketing strategy, but we do a lot of just custom design, a lot of branding and logos and identity work, and some stuff I'll talk about called branding here in a little bit. Okay. Now I was thinking, what could I maybe some words of wisdom that I could leave with you today. We are a few $1 million company. We have about 45 employees. We've never had a year that we've had less gross revenue than the previous year. So every year we've outpaced the previous year. Last year was no exception. We ended 2012 with our highest revenue ever. It takes a lot of hard work to make that happen, but there's probably two things that I would attribute that to, and I'll share those both with you today. One is that it's really the people that matter the most. We just happen to offer a product and a service of marketing and design services, but we can only deliver that because we have great employees. And we can only have great employees because we provide an environment that makes them want to work there. And we can only have money coming in if we have great customers who are happy with our great employees. And so that's the key, but that's kind of, I realize, a little nebulous and kind of fluffy. But specifically, if I wish sometimes I could go back and be your age and know what I know now, because if I were to start a business in your shoes right now, I would focus on the number one thing of finding and creating and building as many personal relationships as I possibly could. This isn't a scientific number, but I sat down and I just kind of looked at my books and I just, so don't quote me on this, but I think it's probably fairly accurate. 90% of our annual revenue comes through existing relationships. People don't call us on the phone that they've never heard of us and they found us on the internet. I mean, we get some, but it's been, hey, somebody told me to call you, or you did work for a friend of mine and he said you guys are awesome. It's 90%. And so you can see why a company like ourselves would spend a lot of money on types of marketing activities that allow us to get in front of more people and to build a personal, deep relationship with individuals. Because people, you and I may become friends, and we may never do business, and that's fine. But we know each other, and we have a good trusted relationship. And guess what? You've got a bunch of people in your wake, or uncles and cousins and family members and bosses and ex-workers you used to work with, who may ask you someday at the Thanksgiving table, hey, I need somebody to help me with a marketing strategy or an ad for a billboard or a website. And, hey, yeah, you got to use Lance. He's awesome. And then my phone rings. So it's just imperative that you focus as much as possible. I would say even almost more important than your product or service is your network. I could quit Eli Kirk today, and I could start up another business, and I'm confident that within a few months I would be profitable with selling some other service or some other product because of my network of friends. I can trace, again, this is not a scientific number, it's a gut feel, but I think it's pretty close, that I can trace probably about 80% of all of our projects to 10 key individuals in my life. And we do hundreds of projects at any given time. And so, again, that just emphasizes how amazing that is. So this relationship thing that I'm talking about and building relationships, that's great. That's very important with potential business customers, but it's also very important to build similar relationships with employees. And so Eli Kirk is all about culture. This summer, we decided to take all of our employees and their families to a dude ranch, which actually is in Animony and is part of my family business. But we had a great time. We created a brand for it. We got T-shirts. There's everybody out front there. We rode horses. We rode calves out of a bucking chute, and a couple of kids got knees scraped up, and so we spent a day and a half just really getting to know each other a little bit better. You see, it's really about building an environment where the employees feel like they're family. And if you can have employees that feel like they're family, then they want to stay. And if you have employees that want to stay, then you can build a successful business and you can have continuity around providing a consistent brand experience to others. Every other billboard on I-15 right now, what is it? Come work for us, right? I'm unfortunately in a business where we're competing with the same people. We hire web developers all the time, and so is everybody else in this valley. As a matter of fact, if you're not real happy in your current career, go into web development and there's a lot of opportunity there. I didn't say that. So we have to really focus at Eli Kirk on a culture that helps employees be really dedicated and loyal, a culture that helps us in recruiting and retention. And we kind of have a saying at Eli Kirk that's, we like you. We like our employees like management. We like our customers like our employees. We like you. It's a culture. I want to show a video. It's short, but it talks a little bit about Eli Kirk and kind of the culture that we have.
I read in a book, and I don't even remember what the name of the book was, but they said there's really two kinds of people. One that walks into a crowded room and says, "Hey everyone, here I am." And another type who walks into the same crowded room and says, "Oh, there you are." So one sentence that summarizes maybe what Eli Kirk does is we help our clients communicate as effectively as possible through strategy, through great design and awesome web development, which then in turn helps them meet their personal and business goals. You know, there's a lot of great design firms out there, and a lot of people can do great design. But when you mix that with very clever strategy, and the design is an output of the clever strategy, then you really have a home run. And that's why people hire us, and that's what they can expect. One of the things that's a big hit is our cereal bar. If you saw it, you'd probably call it a cereal buffet, but it allows mostly employees, but customers or anybody who comes through to grab a bowl of cold cereal. We strongly feel that if we treat our employees the way that we should treat them, that they will in turn treat our clients the same way that we treat them. I think mostly what people remember from Eli Kirk is the experience that they have with our employees and the one-on-one care that they get, which really makes Eli Kirk unique. So something that's interesting about our company is every year we do something we call Slash Bash that allows our clients to come and use swords and slash pumpkins and throw them off of high towers and chop them up, and we've done this with over 2,000 pumpkins over the years.
Brad Mertz has been to one of our Slash Bash events. We have, this last fall we had about 600 people in attendance. News media showed up. We were dropping 800-pound pumpkins from a crane onto a burning trailer. It was awesome. Now, why do we do that? I mean, it took a bunch of planning, it took a bunch of money. We invited our customers, which was awesome. But if you got me off to the side and said, "Why do you really do it?" It's because we're trying to provide a culture for our employees that they love it. And so, for example, the year before last when we did this, one of my employees, who's a web developer, who would have other opportunities elsewhere just as easy as he does with us, but he came up to me and he said, "How cool is it that I work for a company that lets me come and destroy pumpkins and pays me to do it? I'm never leaving Eli Kirk," right? So that's why we do it. It's this community of we like you, and this relationship, and it's really, as you saw in my very first slide, it's really the people that matter most. Okay. Switching gears just a little bit. I just want to share with you a video that's actually a corporate alliance video, but I got permission to use it. And it talks about one of the challenges that somebody like you might have, and that we all have because of our natural tendencies, is to pick and choose who we want to do business with or pick and choose who we want to be friends with. Okay? Let me share this video with you.
Relationship arrogance means prioritizing relationships based on a forecasted return on investment. Refusing to build relationships with others because you can't see an immediate return is dangerous, because some of the greatest opportunities often come from the least likely of sources. Not so long ago, in a land called Philadelphia, Kim Aviles arrived at a hotel gala. She noticed a woman sitting alone and introduced herself. The woman's name was Linda. Her daughter was getting married. Kim invited her over to check out the space at the Philadelphia Marriott where she worked. Kim also introduced Linda to some of the other guests. They whispered, "Why are you talking to that lady? What type of wedding would that be? Look at the way she's dressed." Kim replied, "Whatever." The next day, Kim asked the hotel wedding coordinator to show Linda around. She went down to greet her, took one look, turned around, and came right back. "Are you kidding me? She doesn't have the money to hold anything here." Kim went down to greet Linda herself. As they talked about her needs for the wedding, they turned out to be the following: police escort to the family and guest receptions, 45 security boxes for jewelry at the hotel, 300 suites at $459 a night for an entire week, dinner for $2,500 at $135 per person, bringing the wedding total to $836,000. They also blocked off Center Street in Philadelphia so Linda's son-in-law could ride down on a white horse to pick up his bride. Moral of the story? Don't judge a book by its cover. Linda's daughter married a prince of India, and the Philadelphia Marriott received 3 additional Indian weddings as a result.
It's a powerful story. And that's just not one single example. I have a personal example at Eli Kirk where I met somebody a year ago at a networking event. Okay, he was a manager of a ranch. Now, it would have been really easy for me to say, I'll never do business with this person. Well, we're really close right now. He's got some other businesses that he's involved in that I didn't know at the time I first met him. If I'd have passed judgment early on, I wouldn't have known that. We're in the process of inking a multi-$100,000 deal with him. Okay, so this is real. So I would encourage you to avoid relationship arrogance. Okay, some words of wisdom. We're a branding company. What is branding? Branding is the aggregate consumer's perception of a certain product or service over time. You all have certain opinions about major brands. You all have certain opinions about the person you're sitting next to. Okay, so we help companies all day long brand their company and their products. But I want to talk to you about personal branding, and what does that mean? You are all individually a self-packaged product. The way you look, the things you say, the way you dress, your social media profiles I'll talk about in a minute. People form opinions of you. And so it's really important that you manage that, because we all have our own personal brand. When I walked out here, I put a cowboy hat on. Some of you probably jumped to some conclusion of who's this guy on the stage. You made an opinion, you formed an opinion of me based on what I was wearing. That could have been positive. It could have been negative. It's hard for me to control your feelings when you see a cowboy hat. But there are some things that I can control, and we'll talk about that real quick. Has he managed his personal brand? He's tried, hasn't he? But this is a great example. I mean, 3 years ago, if I show this picture, what 2 words come to mind? Three years ago. Greatest golfer in the world. Okay, today, adulterer, cheater. Greatest golfer in the world. Okay, what about this guy? So I have 2 teenage daughters. They went to the Bieber concert the other day. My 11-year-old came home, and she was dead serious. She said, "Dad, I'm going to marry him." I might be all right with that. Mother Teresa? Anything jump? Does she have a personal brand that she manages and controls? This is somebody you don't know. What can you tell by looking at that? What does he have a brand?
More like you get that hard-working look.
He's got a hard-working look. He's kind of got a leathered face. You can tell he's been out in the sun a lot. He's got a work shirt on. Do you think he's honest? Maybe. Okay, that's my dad. We lost him actually in February of last year, so we're coming on a year. Just like we help companies, I want to teach you a couple of principles. In a personal brand, you need to understand who your target market is. A target market might be a girl you're trying to marry. A target market might be a industry or a specific company that you want to work for. So you have to identify that and then know how you want to attack and message that to that target market. Okay, positioning. What's a positioning statement? So in business, positioning means that you own. Tiger Woods owns the best golfer. Okay, Volvo owns safe cars. Apple owns breaking the mold and challenging the status quo. What do you own? That's the guy with the ponytail, or that's the guy with the cowboy hat, or that's the guy with flip-flops. Okay, what do you own? And can you manage it? This is Bill Brady. He's our president in our company. This is his positioning statement. I would encourage each of you to write a positioning statement. A positioning statement is something that you want to claim that you do better than anybody else, or that you have a skill set that rises above most everybody else. Do you know what your position statement is in life? Brands know what their position statement is, and you should know what yours is. And if you don't have one, that's fine. Write one. For sake of time, I'm not going to read that, but maybe you guys have read some of that. But he's a very sharp individual, and that's his position in the marketplace. Here's one I pulled off the internet. Here's a whiz of a sales executive. I was born knowing about selling the sizzle, not the steak, an executive risk taker. You can read the rest. Another one. Here's an HR change agent. As a catalyst for positive change, I have a history of engaging board and staff members to generate new ideas. How would you start writing your own position statement? First of all, I would start by asking yourself, what do I want to be remembered? When somebody meets me, what do I want them to walk away knowing about me or thinking about me? And you'll probably come up with 3 or 4 things. And then prioritize those 3 or 4 things, and then start putting them into sentences. And they don't have to be as businessy as the ones I've shown you. They can be social. They can be spiritual. But come up with these statements that define you, or that you want to define you. Tiger Woods doesn't want to be known as an adulterer or as a cheater. So, but guess what? We as the aggregate consumers have labeled him that based on his actions. So we can control our brand as long as our actions are congruent with our positioning statement. We can control our brand as long as our actions are congruent with our positioning statement. Companies don't, well, some do, but companies shouldn't say one thing and do another, and neither should you. You should say you're this way and then live such that you're that way. Okay, messaging. So targeting, positioning, and messaging, those are all 3 things that we do for companies, but they're the same thing that you need to do in finding a job or running a business or moving it forward in your professional career. You need to understand that you personally have a brand. And it's around understanding who your target market is and how you're going to talk to them, What position you're going to stake is, dang it, I'm the best at this, and put a stake in the ground. And then what messages are you going to say that reinforce that position to that target market? If you're trying to get the cutest girl in school, you know who your target market is. What's your position? I don't know. I'm good looking, I'm going to make lots of money, I'm spiritual, I'm a bad boy, I don't know. But something that you think that's going to attract her, and then everything that you talk about and say and do reinforces that position to that target market. Your message are the things you say. They are the way you dress and the way you look and the way you groom yourself. They can be incongruent. You can say my position is this way, and you can dress another way, and that can be incongruent. So make sure they're consistent, especially when you're in front of your target market. It's also what you say online. I mean, you guys know as much about this or more than I do, but your social media profiles are very, they're very visible for everyone to see. When we get a candidate to come and work for us, guess where we go check first? Have we ever not interviewed somebody because of something really silly on Facebook? Absolutely. Okay. Running out of time here, but the good news is we're just about done. I want to tell you about a quick story about this. We interviewed a gal that came highly recommended. Every other word in the interview was like. We couldn't get her out of the room fast enough. My wife would tell you, I tell our kids, every time they start saying like, I say, tell that story again without saying the word like. And sometimes they struggle. Contrast that with this guy. This guy interviewed with us. He's a social media expert. His resume is congruent. The design motifs are congruent with an expert in social media. We were impressed. We didn't hire him because we didn't have an opening, but we referred him to somebody we knew who did. But very impressive. Okay. One final story, and then I'll take 5 or 8 minutes of questions. What does this mean? I've talked about your personal brand. I've talked about the importance of people and the importance of building relationships. In 1957, my father, who you saw there, he was a rancher and farmer in Animony, but it was tough. And so he'd go to California to make money in the winter. He was selling for some department store, and he was making $1,000 a week, which in 1957 is a lot of money. $4,000 a month, probably equivalent of $200,000 or $300,000 today. In the spring of 1957, his dad calls him and says, son, it's time to come home. We got manure to spread. And so he had to make a decision. Do I want to make $4,000 a month, or do I want to go home and shovel manure? And you can see from this picture what he did. The guy on the right's my dad. The guy on his left is my grandpa. He shoveled manure. Now, does that mean that that's his position? Is that his personal position statement, to shovel manure? No. His personal position statement is that he is authentic. He's a hard worker. He has a family that he wants to raise in the country. So staying in California would have been incongruent with that personal position statement. So he drives home and he's shoveling manure and putting it on the field to grow nice green hay. How does that tie? It ties to understanding what your position is and really understanding that people matter the most, more than things. Thank you. It's been fun. It always, time goes by fast when you're having fun. So I'd like to open it up to questions. You can ask anything about my industry, about our work, about what we do. Anything's open. I don't care. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. So how does Eli Kirk differentiate ourselves? Well, the reality is we have competitors that are very good. We admit that. And we have some that aren't very good, and we tell people when they're not. But so we have to differentiate on service. And you remember when I said we like you? That is a inbred culture internally that you ask any one of our employees, what's the culture inside of Eli Kirk? We like you. And so we're hopeful, and we got some data that supports it because we just did a big survey that we ask all of our customers why they do business with us. Because you care about me. And it's not about the transaction, it's about the relationship. And so the way we've differentiated, do we write off invoices sometimes because we don't want somebody to be upset? Absolutely. It's not about the transaction at Eli Kirk, it's about the person. It's the people that matter most. And that comes through if it's genuine to our customers validate that and say, yeah, that's why we like doing business with you. Is the guy down the street a good designer? Absolutely. Now, we would like to think we're a little bit better and would like to, but you can't sit there and tell a customer we're better than that guy. That's subjective.
This idea of this culture idea for your clients and your employees is pretty popular, but it seems like it's always focused around technology groups. Do you see that as an avenue for other industries, say medical or industrial?
Yeah. So the ones that have kind of written the book on culture, if you want to read a good book, it's called Delivering Happiness by the Zappos guys. They're selling shoes for crying out loud. And they kind of own culture in the workplace. They'll interview you, and if they want to hire you, through a 6-month process or whatever it is, don't quote me on the dates, they'll pay you a couple grand if you decide not to take the job. That's bold. Because they want people to know that, they want people to stay in that culture. So yes, the short answer is, companies should be doing it, and there's an example of a shoe company that do it. I think it's probably proportionate to how hard it is to get employees. Frankly, unfortunately, all companies should be doing it, but it seems like the ones where talent is low and it's hard and everybody's competing for the same people. Those are the ones that try to introduce culture into their brands. Yeah. That's a great question. Yes. Probably the most important book is by the Arrogance Institute, and it's called Leadership and Self-Deception. That book influenced me more than probably any business book I've ever read. Leadership and Self-Deception. Great book. I'd tell you what it's about, but we probably don't have time. Yeah.
As you bring on new clients, is there a trend that you notice that everybody makes mistakes in, that as we go out, we can just fix those things before we go to my marketing?
So are you talking as a businessman trying to hunt a marketing company, mistakes that the business might make?
Yeah. As they come in, is there anything that's just across the board? Everybody has bad websites, or everybody has too small a text, or anything like that?
So generally speaking, everybody thinks that they understand how to sell to their customers, and in reality they don't. They might have a pretty good idea, but they really don't. So they'll come in and say, make me a website, and here's what I want to say. Well, have you tested that? So no, it's just my gut feel that that's the motivation. So the marketing strategy process helps us come up with messaging that talks to the right, that enforces the position statement of we're the best at this, that then motivates the consumer to purchase based off of an emotional decision. We all make emotional purchase decisions. Every purchase decision you've made is an emotional decision. And so if we can create emotional, compelling reasons to buy, then we encourage them to buy. The number one thing that companies come in, they think they know the answers of what that message is. And they really should back it up with research, asking at a minimum a survey to their existing clients or potential clients. Other questions? Yeah.
What is the best way to start developing that type of culture in a business?
Do it, and don't say you're going to do it. And dedicate some money towards it. One of the things we do at Eli Kirk is every quarter we have an iPad drawing. That takes money. But somebody wins and goes home with an iPad. So it's really, you have to encourage management that it's really important. And once management sees it, then setting aside the budget to do it, right? But it really is, management has to say, this is important to us for it to happen. Yeah.
Any other quick questions for Lance before we finish up? I think that was an excellent presentation. Let's give Lance a round of applause for being here today.